We hope states come out with their own services strategies so that they can leverage what they are strong at. It could be just culinary art. Somebody is fantastic in food. That can become, I mean, you don't go to Paris only to see the Louvre, right? You also go to eat food there. So you go to Louvre for other reasons also nowadays. So that is that. I wish them all success, and let's look forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing insightful perspective and highlighting the importance of the services sector. So now to give us the brief overview of the two reports being launched today, I invite Dr. Sonia Pant to make a short presentation on highlighting the key findings.
Thank you, Deepak, and thank you to all the dignitaries who gave their introductory remarks. And it's really encouraging to hear such good words from such senior level officers. I would make a brief presentation on both the reports, just highlighting key elements. As Sir said, we will be sharing this presentation later on. And so I think we can begin. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a slide which kind of tells you what is the work that we are doing in the services division, and it kind of puts it all together. Our work began last year when we started looking at this concordance analysis. So when we started working on services, we realized that there are different sources of data, and they do not speak to each other. Trade data looks different, GVA data looks different, employment data is different, FDI data is different. And we were kind of struggling to understand how do we make these different data come together and speak to each other. So what we started with is that we started working a 15 sector classification of services. Primarily, initially this classification that we developed was based on how data is captured in exports, in value added, and in employment. And the backup for this entire 15 sector classification was a heuristic concordance approach, which was basically this mapping was developed to see whatever is the available data at the highest level of aggregation. And then we saw what is the specific subsector, and this mapping was based on expert judgment, industry insights and knowledge, and also what are the available definitions in each of these data sets. So once and this culminated into a working paper which came out last year around the same time. And based on this entire approach of looking at services data across different dimensions, we started analyzing the services sector as a whole, and we all know that services is heterogeneous. There are several subsectors, and we also started looking at the subsector. So we started looking at different dimensions, and those dimensions are listed in front of you. So we looked at the gross value added, we looked at employment. Those are the two reports that we are unveiling today. We also looked at regulations so that we could work on services standards. Our productivity report is also on its way, and here we are looking at labor productivity, capital productivity, and total factor productivity in services. Then we are also working on a comprehensive report on trade, where we look at trade from very different dimensions, because today we have data which is looking at trade from different dimensions. So we not only look at the conventional balance of payment data, which our central bank provides, and the IMF and WTO also provides. We also look at trade and value-added data, which the OECD and WTO provides, and see what are the nuances that emerge from it, because this is the crucial linkage of services with manufacturing. The servicification of manufacturing angle comes out from this data set. We also look at modal data, because we all know internationally, and even nationally, services are delivered across 4 modes of supply, and it is generally said that India has a big advantage in mode 1, which is cross-border supply. So we look at data modally, and which is through this trade and services data across modes of supply. This is a data set which the WTO has come out with. And we also have a bilateral services trade data. Generally, it is said that we do not know bilateral trade and services data, because that is the most difficult thing to find. But BATIS, again, an OECD and WTO initiative, they have come out with bilateral data, and we take a peek in this and see what is India trading bilaterally and how does it determine our future strategy. We are also looking at foreign direct investment, and we are very happy that we've got a minefield of data from DPIIT, and I'm so happy that this is a new work that will come out in FDI. I don't think so there is much on this field on services, where we look at nationally and we also look at subnationally. The other work in progress, while we were looking at these dimensions, we realized that certain sectors and certain subsectors emerge as very important. And so the sectoral lens becomes very important. And therefore, we have a number of sectoral studies which are presently underway, which are looking at different sectors, such as professional services, such as financial services, so on and so forth. So the strategy strategy that we adopt in this division is a multi-pronged strategy so that we can have a complete understanding of the services sector. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the launch, and we're very thankful to CEO sir and all of you to be here today so that we can unveil these two reports. Next slide, please. So what is new and noteworthy in these two reports? So there are three broad things which I think are worthy of your attention. The first is, it is a first of its kind assessment which looks at the sector in a comprehensive manner as far as output and employment is concerned. Secondly, we move into state level dynamics. We go deep into the state level insights as far as possible and as far as the data lets us do. Third is that we are doing a concordance-based approach, so we give you data which is more disaggregated as compared to what is generally available for services. Then if we were to look at these 5 categories in terms of what do these reports do, so the GVA report in terms of its focus, it's on structural transformation, and we are looking at national and state level trends. Whereas if you look at the employment report, we focus on employment patterns. The GVA report is looking at growth patterns, sectoral resilience, etc. And the employment report looks at 7 key dimensions of employment. These dimensions help us to understand who is working in services, what are they working on, and under what conditions do they operate. So these 3 questions will help policymakers to look at the future perspective. If we were to look at now the regional and sectoral insights, the GVA report, we have tried to do a convergence analysis based on whatever data we have, and we are trying to see whether there is regional catch-up in the or convergence in the services-led growth. As far as the employment report is concerned, a new thing that has been done is we've tried to sketch out the entire employment landscape of India. And this we have done on the basis of the shares, employment shares that are there in the PLFS data. We have used the population figures and tried to give you some broad ballpark numbers. So this is done for the whole economy, and we've also gone and done it deeply in a more microscopic lens for the several services subsectors. And what is the analytical framework we've used? As CEO sir mentioned, we've used a 4-quadrant approach in GVA, whereas in employment, we've used a dimension and region-specific approach. And the last one are the data sources. It is publicly available data, which the MOSPI gives us. Next slide, please. So this slide basically is telling us what has happened from 2011-12 to 2023-24. Here you will see that if we were to look at the primary sector, there has been a decline in its contribution to the national output. So decline from 21.7% to 16.7%. The secondary sector is also almost the same with a marginal decline. But what has grown is services. And what has grown in services? It is 13% to 17.6%. This is the major growth, which is your real estate, ownership of dwellings, and professional services. So the MOSPI data gives us a clubbing of the entire data set. It's very difficult to find out what exactly in this has grown. Through our concordance approach, we've tried to break it as far as possible, and that comes out in the next slide. So if we were to now look at it in terms of top 7 and bottom 7 sectors, you will see trade and repair continues to be very important even in 23-24. The next is professional services, other business services. This also includes real estate. So we don't really know what is the division between real estate and other professional services, but we could classify computer and information services separately, and you can see the increase. It has more than doubled from 2.93 to 6.67. And then we have the bottom sectors which are listed in the lower panel of the slide. Next, please. So we now come to the state-specific analysis that was done in the GVA report. And you will see, and what we found was that 28 out of 33 states recorded services shares which were higher than what they have in 2011-12. And what a very interesting thing that we found out was that the smaller states, which includes the hill states, the northeast states, and other states, they are catching up quickly, and their catching up is happening through education, through health, and through public services. We also found that 10 out of 33 states today have GVA of more than 60%. So services contribute more than 60% of their total GSVA. And there we also found a regional divide. We found that southern and western states dominate on modern services, whereas the other states are focusing more on traditional services. We also undertook a convergence analysis, as I just mentioned, and we tried to study whether the Indian states are becoming more similar to each other in terms of their structural transformation, their structural composition, particularly with respect to services share, and we did the sigma and the beta convergence. And what we found was that even though interstate disparities have increased modestly, so this would be the sigma convergence, in beta convergence we found a highly significant evidence of catch-up. So gradually states are catching up, and that is a good news for us. Next slide, please. So based on this analysis, we developed a policy roadmap, and this was based on sectoral prioritization as well as sector-specific prioritization. So we, on the sectors, we looked at GVA and the average growth of GVA. So what is the share and what is at what rate are they growing? And we divided the sector into engines of growth, which had both high GVA and high growth rates. These were sectors like computers, like professionals, like trade and repair, education, etc. And the strategy, which is detailed much more in the report, was to expand. If you look at mature giants, these are the sectors which had a high DVS share, but the rate of growth is slowly coming down. So here we need to modernize. Similarly, we had emerging stars and we had struggling segments which needed reform. From the state level analysis, we found that generally there is a positive association between the per capita income and the average services share. So services is associated with rising income. That was coming out clearly, though we found a very interesting case of some outlier states. And I will not go into that because you should see the report for which is the outlier state and how do they function. And based on that, we divided states into 4 categories, and we used this pinwheel 3 types of unlock to see how do we strategize and what kind of reforms we can do. And based on CEO sir's guidance, we have prepared a state level annex for both the reports, and it will be great if you can go through. And we'll seek the guidance of the state governments and the state level officers who are there today to take this process forward even more. So let's move on. I'll quickly finish the employment also. So as sir just mentioned that there are about, services is now employing around 188 million or about 19 crore people, which is 30% of the workforce. And 40 million jobs have been added in the last 6 years, but our 30% is still lacking the global average, which is 50%. And what is interesting is the improvement in elasticity in the pre and post-COVID services, which members are just mentioned about. Here again, if you were to look at the top and the bottom 7, that is explained in the right-hand panel of the slide, and you will see which sectors are constituting the top and the bottom. Next slide, please. So interestingly, when we did the elasticity, we found a subsectoral duality. So if you see this chart, I'll quickly explain this chart. So on the y-axis, we have what is the share of the subsector in the services employment share. And then on the right side, we have what is the share of the subsector in the GVA. And the bubble size indicates the employment elasticity. The green bubble indicates the elasticity is more than or equal to 0.5. And so on and so forth. What we find here is that the 80% of traditional sectors, so 80% of the employment is in traditional sectors. These are the sectors which have low employment elasticity, and this works out to about 155 million people. So most of the people working in services are working in the traditional services sector, whereas modern services sector, which have better elasticity and better wages as well as better global linkages and better exports also, employ a lesser number of people. Next slide, please. So based on this entire analysis, we conducted a 7-dimensional analysis, and we saw spatial concentration, and there we found that 61% of employment in urban areas is in services, whereas only 19% in rural areas. And if you were to look at women, this divide becomes even more intense. And over the years, we saw that women participation has declined in services. This is broadly more because of the rural aspect coming into gender participation. If you look at employment type, we saw a very interesting dichotomy that both regular wage and self-employment are important. So as per our estimations, about half of services workers, which is about 96 million, are in regular wages. So they are regular salaried employees. That's a huge number. No other sector in India shows this kind of number. But at the same time, about 45% of the people are in self-employment. So that is the dichotomy of this sector. And about only 4% are in casual employment status. If you look at the age distribution, it is anchored in the primary age, which is 30 to 40 years. Education, we found that graduates were getting more jobs, but as you increased education, we were finding a lot of people also getting into self-employment. So definitely, it is indicative of a mismatch between education level and what the industry wants. So there is a skill mismatch between demand and supply coming out here. We saw majority of the people in services are informal. So their employment does not give them job security or social protection. And rural women are earning much less than their male counterparts, whereas urban women earn better. And we also found hope in sectors such as ICT and healthcare, education, etc., where the earnings of women were actually matching those of men, or maybe a little lesser, and sometimes even higher. So that is something which is showing us a way forward in terms of strategy. Next, please. So this is an interesting analysis in terms of what happened in the states. So if you see the two maps, you see the first one looks at share and the next one looks at numbers. So here you will see that that states which have higher share in services have lower numbers. And here the population scale is, or the size of the population is actually influencing this kind of dynamics. And the states where there are larger number of people employed in services, though the share is still lesser, are mostly in traditional services. So I can clearly say that traditional services dominate high employment, and in terms of the output being less, it means low productivity. Whereas if you look at smaller states, then these states are focused on education, health, and public administration. Southern and western states are focused more on modern services. Next page. So based on this entire analysis, we have proposed a four-pronged approach, which is on the policy area. And as I mentioned, then we also have specific state-level strategies. Next, please. So the way forward, this we will be discussing with the stakeholders in our next session. So I think we'll skip this and move on to the next one. So broadly, this is the last slide, and I like to conclude by saying that services are at an inflection point, at a critical inflection point today. And these five broad things tell us about the inflection point. So there is a digital transformation and servicification happening across the economy. We have a demographic dividend, but we have a problem in terms of skilling focus. There is blended services model coming up, which means services have to be looked at as a bundle. Services and goods are bundled together, blended model. We need investment in infrastructure. We need to focus on trade, on international markets to make India a global services hub. And we will have, just the way we have value chain in goods, we also have value chain in services. And there is a huge scope for India to rise very high in this services value chain. If we have it right, it can be the reason which can power India lead to a developed nation status. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the concise and informative presentation. So now that time has come, the moment we all have been waiting for, the official launch of the two reports on the India service sector employment. So now I request Honorable Member Sir, CEO Sir, Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. Sonia Khan, ma'am, to kindly unveil the report. I request my team to kindly assist.
बढ़िया देखा ग्रेट मेरे को कहीं जाना था मैं देखा नहीं था आगे चले गए